Hi. If you only knew the power of your own mind, you would waste a whole lot less time worrying about all the things that have happened in the past and start to get really creative about what it is you want for yourself in the future. I was recently having a cup of coffee with two of my Reiki students, and we started talking about the power of the mind and how we can manifest things simply by really focusing and believing, in possibilities. And I told them this story that happened to me in the year 2000. It was on the first night of the Olympics coming to Sydney. And I'd taken my daughter Sarah away to Tangalooma Island to swim with dolphins as a mother and daughter bonding experience. And when we came back, we were going to be staying at Scott's place in Coogee. And we got there, of course, and he wasn't home. Now I had this inkling, and my intuition's usually spot on. And I just have this feeling something big's coming tonight. I don't know what it is, but there's going to be a big lesson in it for me. But I'm just going to trust that whatever happens, I'll deal with it. And that really is the way I run most of my things in my life. I just trust no matter what happens, I'll handle it. Anyway, so firstly, I'd rung my husband and said, Scott's not home. But anyway, we'll just keep ringing him. And he said, well, I'll ring too. And the next thing I noticed that my phone ran out of credit. Now, back in 2000, you didn't just punch it in on the phone. I had to actually go and stand under a street light and write down all the numbers and then punch them back into my phone to get the credit. And then once I got the credit, the next thing that happened was my phone was going flat. So that just reaffirmed this feeling inside of me, something's going to happen tonight. Now, Sarah was marching up and down and saying, oh, bloody Scott, I'll kill him, and as siblings do. And I just thought to myself, I can generally control any situation if I can control my mind, and I can't control what's going to come out of her mouth. So I'm going to encourage her to catch a cab or to get a boyfriend to pick her up. So I told her to ring a boyfriend, and it turned out he was working, and he said, if you can get a taxi to me, I'll drop you home after work. And so she left. And then my phone, of course, started going flat, and I rang Kim and said, I'm safe, can you keep ringing Scott? My phone's just about to die. So I went in and I popped my bags around just behind the front door. Scott's flat was directly in front, and around the corner there was a staircase that just went up. And I popped them out of view from the main street. And I just walked up the stairs and just sat on the stairs reading a book that I'd borrowed off someone. I think it was on past lives. And so I could hear the phone ringing inside the flat, and that was Kim and that was Sarah. And I also had Kim constantly ringing me, and I'd just pick up the phone and go, I'm okay, and it'd hang up again. It would just run out of power. So I thought, this is going to be a really interesting night. Generally, there's always something to learn from any of those interesting nights in my book. So I continued to read my book, and then at 3:00 in the morning, I heard someone stomp, 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 come in to the front of the building and then start to turn around, and he obviously saw my bags there, and he just yelled out, who the bloody hell owns these bags? And me, having taught women self-defense, no, I don't want to look like a victim. So I just stood up and said, well, actually I do. And he said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Carol, I'm Scott's mum. And then he was nice then, and he said, oh, we met Scott today, he's a good bloke. Someone hit our car and he came up and told us he's a good bloke. And for me, I just went, that's good, that's a point in my favor. And so then the fella came up the stairs and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just waiting for Scott, he won't be long. And he said, well, you better come in, we'll make you a cup of tea. And I went, oh, no, that's fine. I'm fine just sitting here on the stairs. And he said, no, my girlfriend's in here, and she'll make you the cup of tea. So she came out and she talked me into going into the flat. Next thing, she went to bed. He closed the door and he took off his flannelette shirt, and he had these big burly muscles with tattoos all over him. And then I got a look at his eyes and I went, they look like the crazy drug guys. This is going to be an interesting night. I wonder why I'm here, because I just have this faith that everything's unfolding for my highest good. And so within minutes, the fellow sat down and I've already got the cup of tea from the girlfriend before she left. And so he lights a bong and he says, here, do you want a hit of this? And I went, oh no, the cup of tea's fine, thanks. Next, he's pulled out half a bottle of vodka and started sculling that, and half a bottle of scotch and sculled that. Again, he did offer me some, but I went, no, the cup of tea's fine. And so it was really already starting to be an interesting night. And within 5 minutes, he told me that his grandfather had raped him, that he'd held up a service station, that his brother had murdered someone, was in jail. So I thought, yeah, this is going to be a very interesting night. I wonder why I'm here. Maybe I'm here to help this kid. And I'm the eternal optimist. And if I can help anybody, I'm going to do that. So while he continued on, I was saying to him things like, look, that doesn't have to define who you are. Your beautiful girlfriend, she loves you. She knows who you are. So you must have a good heart. And we just kept talking for a while. The next thing, he came and sat next to me and he held up this knife and he said, here, have a look at this knife. And I went, very similar to the one my husband's got. And yeah, it's a lovely knife. And I took it off him and I put it down on the table. So he continued telling me things that had happened to him. And then the next thing, he's put his hand on my lap. And I said, hang on a minute, take your hand off my lap. I understand you're confused. I have children the same age as you. How do you get on with your mum? And he said, the last time I saw her, she held a knife to my throat. And I went, maybe that wasn't the right tactic, because I'm thinking to myself, I'll just really reaffirm I'm the parent, you're the child. There's a boundary there. But then I realized that wasn't probably going to work for me. So the next thing he said, I'm going to do to you. And I went, a lovely boy like you wouldn't do a thing like that. Why would you say that? Someone like you wouldn't do that. You've got such a lovely girlfriend. So then he started crying and arguing with himself. And he said, why would I do it? Why would I say a thing like that? Well, why shouldn't I? Because I want to. Oh, no, but that's a terrible thing to do. And it was a really strange moment. He was crying and he was arguing with himself. Then he picked up the knife again off the table and said, here, have a good look at that knife, this knife. I held up a service station with this. And I just went, yep, exactly like my husband's, and took it off and put it down out of his reach. And the funny thing that happened next was that even though my dad had died 2 years before, I heard my father's voice. And my father's voice said, here's your lesson, you idiot. You can't help everybody. Sometimes you've got to put yourself first. Get out now. And I heard that loud and clear in my head. And then my immediate first thought was, gosh, I'm a slow learner. So I instantly just looked at this fellow and I said, look, I think I just heard Scott's door. I'm just going to go and check if Scott's home. And he goes, yeah, no worries. If he's not there, come back. And I went, yeah, rightio. Thanks for the cup of tea. And I bolted out. I ran down the stairs. I got my bags and I took them and I hid them underneath the stairs. And then I ran around the back of the building. And I kind of locked myself in, without realizing it at first, into this 4 brick walls and 1 exit. And I moved in between 2 of the buildings. There was a little gap. And I went back in and I kind of squatted down and I'm thinking to myself, palm strike to the groin, palm strike to the nose. And then I went, wait a minute. He's told me he's had that much speed. He's going to stay with me all night. I've seen him with the bong. He's had vodka. He's had scotch. I don't think he's going to feel anything I do. And then I started going, wait a minute, here's my lesson. Because what I know from reading lots of work by Florence Scovel Shinn, and one of her main books is The Game of Life and How to Play It. And she talks about how to use the mind. And in her book, she was aware that if we think something can happen, then there's a possibility of that happening. And if we don't think it's possible, it can't happen, because everything is energy and information. Our thoughts have power. Whatever we think about, we can bring about. So instantly, I thought to myself, wait a minute, now I'm in a dangerous position. Now I feel that there is a possibility something bad could happen to me. I need to get out of here right now. So I got up and I crept down the side of the building and just kind of up against the building. And I got to the very end of the building and then I could smell alcohol. I went, oh no, he's out here looking for me. And so I looked around and I saw he was standing in the gateway just looking up and down the street. And then I remember another story from Florence Scovel Shinn's book. And in her book, there was a murderer who was on the loose in this town. This young girl, who was one of Florence's students, had been to one of the classes and got home on the bus. and was walking back to her flats, and she was going to go up to the laundry, which was not a part of the main building. And she heard footsteps, but she ran into the laundry to check her washing. She turned around, and this fella was standing in the door with his hands up and his feet out. And she projected thoughts. I'm the cat, you're the mouse. You've got the wrong person. You've got the wrong person. And this girl told Florence that she just walked straight past him and said, excuse me. And it was as if he just shrunk. And she just walked past him. And later she found that somebody had been murdered in the Parker block from there. So what I know about the mind and the power that we have is if one person can do something, anyone can do it. And it's just about believing that. And so in that instant, I then thought, if Florence can teach people to use their mind to create new scenarios and even put people to sleep, I can do it too. Now, I knew he'd had that much speed and all the rest of the drugs and things, but I projected the thoughts, you are so tired, you are so tired. Why don't you just sit down? You're so tired, why don't you just rest? Within a minute, the fellow just sat down in the gateway, and I just kept projecting the thoughts. You're so tired, why don't you just close your eyes and have a rest? The next thing, his eyes closed and his head fell down. So I crept over to the wire fence, which was probably about 10 meters away. I climbed over the fence and I squatted down and hid behind the fence, which was just a mesh fence, but there were 2 or 3 Otto garbage bins. So I was just kind of peeking around and keeping my eye on him. And I kept projecting the thoughts, you're so tired, just rest, just sleep well. And then a car came and stopped next door and they slammed the door, but this fellow did not move. So I climbed back over the fence, went in, 10 meters behind him, went into the building, grabbed my bags up from under the stairwell, walked back over, climbed back over the fence and went out onto the road and hailed a taxi. And the taxi driver stopped. He said, I've got another fare, but it is the first night of the Olympics and there's no taxis around. If I don't give you a lift, you won't get one tonight. Where do you want to go? I said, take me to the airport, please. Now, by then it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and he just took me to the airport. On the way, once we dropped the other fare, he asked what happened, and I said, could we just go? Could we go? And I told him what happened, and he said, oh, you poor thing, do you want to stop for a drink? I went, no, take me to the airport. So it was a really interesting night. And I got to the airport and I caught the plane home at 6 o'clock in the morning. Turned out my son Scott didn't even have his phone. His girlfriend had the phone that night and she wasn't answering. She was partying with everybody else in Sydney for the Olympics. So I'm always looking for what are the lessons. And because of my old days as a nurse, I believe I'm able to keep a calm head in stressful situations and kind of have that presence of mind to always be kind of one step ahead. Now, that doesn't mean I can always second guess what's going to happen, but just knowing the power of the mind and knowing that we can project our thoughts and change someone else's mind is just amazing. And it reminds me when I do my Reiki work, quite often when we're doing Reiki, we are connecting, if we're doing distance healing, we're connecting in energetically with the essence of that person, and we can send energy to them so that they can heal. When I'm doing my hypnosis work here in my office, quite often I will brain sync with that client who's sitting in the chair. And I kind of, if I've got someone that's really quite anxious, I will put myself into self-hypnosis and bring my brainwave pattern down to alpha or theta. And what I know is that we can just then, when we go into that state, other people in the room will sync with that brain pattern. And, I don't know how many times I've had people say to me, how did you know what I was thinking? I thought it and you said it 2 seconds later. And I said, I just think that our auras are connected, our brains are connected, and we're kind of in it together doing this work. So I know what you need to hear so that you can heal. And so that's just one of my little stories. I've got lots of other stories, similar stories to that would probably make you doubt it, but I could probably write a book of amazing things that have happened to me. So I hope you've enjoyed my story, and I'll share another one. Soon. So just enjoy your beautiful day. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. This is Carol Macrae, Mind Body Magic in Dubbo, Hypnotherapy, Reiki, Seichim, Kinetic Shift, Theta Healing, Touch for Health Kinesiology, Spiritual Counseling, 5-path hypnosis. I just think we've got lots of tools in our bags, so it means we've got more things that we can use to help people. So have a great day, guys. Love and blessings to all. Namaste.